So today's webinar is on values and beliefs, the sources of success or failure in life. But before we start talking about values and beliefs, I would like to take the chance to talk a little bit about the two controlling forces that have directed our life and kept you at times from taking action. Those forces are the twin forces, what I call twin forces that leads our life of pain and pleasure. Remember, everything we do in life, every little thing we do in life, we do it out of our need to avoid pain or to desire to gain pleasure. I'll give you an example. Normally at my workshop or classes, sometimes I ask ladies in the audience, please raise your hand if you put on makeup today. And do you know that 90% of the audience will raise their hand, many times 99%. Now, I want you to think about that. Why do they put on makeup each day? Or why do you if you're a lady? Why? Is it because you wake up in the morning, look in the mirror and say, God, I adore and I love this process? I doubt it very seriously. Why do you put it on then? It's for one of two reasons you put on the makeup. So because first reason, because in your mind you say, you know, putting on makeup makes me feel more attractive. They don't have to do this, but I still do it. Why? Because it makes you feel pleasure. And the reason number two, it's because their brain says, well, if I don't put on, somebody is going to say, what happened to your face? And then you will see, you will be like, giving you some kind of pain. We call this a painful situation. So the point is, the only reason they put it on is to avoid pain and gain pleasure. So sometimes we do it for some combination of those two things. Values and beliefs, there are pretty big statements to make, but I think you're going to find that your values and your beliefs are really the driving force behind you. Now, you might say, well, Marcelino, you've already said that pain and pleasure are the controlling force of my life. That's true, but specifically, you and I, throughout our lives, we have learned to give labels for different levels of pain and different levels of pleasure. And those labels are what we call values specifically. If I said to you, which would you rather have? Success, adventure, outrageousness, love, comfort or feeling of security? Can I ask you to pick one of those? Which one would you pick? If you could only have one of those, which one of those states, I call these states of mind, which one of those states would you pick? Actually, it's different for everyone. Some people might say, it's clear to me, I want to be absolutely have success. That's what life is about. And other people go like, success is nice, but you know, you can succeed, but not be adventurous. And I want to be an adventurer. And others go, I want to be outrageous. And if you're outrageous, you're going to have fun. You're going to play. You're going to have a great time in life. And other people, well, that's all nice, but I want love. And you can have all other things. But if you feel love, you don't have anything. So other people say, no, man. I mean, you can be loved, but still not feeling comfortable. Who wants to be loved and be in pain all the time? I want to be comfortable. And other people might say, hey, forget all this stuff. I just want to feel secure. And all of us in life have learned different words that we call emotions, that to give them levels of importance. That is, we have learned to value different emotions at different levels of intensity. So I want you to see that all these emotions, for most people, are pretty much pleasurable. Think about it. Feeling successful, feeling outrageous, feeling adventurous, feeling love, feeling secure, feeling comfortable. But you don't value all these states at the same level. You want them all, but not at the same level. So how can we use this understanding to affect our lives? This is the question. Well, we all have what I call hierarchy of values that is guiding our everyday focus. In other words, but at any moment in time, human beings are deleting most of what's going on around them. So we're not paying attention to everything. We only pay attention to a small part of our experience. And what we pay attention to, what we focus on is based on our values. So now you'll tell me, like, our values tell us what states we should pay attention to because they are going towards lots of pleasure. And we also have some values that we pay attention to because they are painful values, the states that we think will be most painful, and we want to avoid them at any cost. We call these two types of values. First type is moving towards values. Those would be states like, let's say, love, attraction, power, success, adventures, happiness, security, states that would create pleasure if you were to experience them. Those are values or states. We try to move towards them. We'll try to get them in our life all the time. And we also have a set of values that we're trying to avoid at any cost. We call those moving away from values. So those would be states that cause all the time pain, because our subconscious mind wants to avoid pain at any cost, any time. So these states would be like maybe frustration or anger or physical pain, maybe depression, whatever it is. Do you get the idea for now? Now, even those states you do not value equally. Let me ask you a question. Which of these states would you avoid most? Frustration or anger or humiliation or physical pain or embarrassment or depression? Now, again, not only would you pick one of these as the one you would avoid most, but you would literally put those in an order, or what we call hierarchy of importance. That is which ones you would do the most to avoid in a ladder of importance. So try this in your mind. Imagine that your brain works like this. Your brain is trying to do virtually anything it can to avoid major pain or painful experiences. And I'm sure you'd agree with me on that by now. And it's trying to do almost anything it can to gain pleasure. There is someone, can you all mute your microphone? I'm hearing something in the background. Por favor, thank you. So the point is, if you know a person's value, you can pretty well predict the basic direction of their life. Does that make sense? If I told you, I know somebody whose number one value in life is freedom, and that's the primary focus of their life, does that kind of give you an idea of how they probably approach their life? They would probably be a little bit sensitive to losing their freedom, wouldn't they? They probably don't want anything to be taken away. How do you think they feel about commitment? Well, it's highly likely, not in every case, but it's highly likely, something that sometimes they are a bit concerned about, because it might be a constraint. Constraint is like a limitation. Now, what if I told you, I know this other person whose number one value is security? How do you think they would approach their life? What kind of relationships might they have? How would they look at activities and possibility? Now, what would happen if one day we took somebody whose number one value in life was security, and so let's say you went down their list of importance and you got down to something called adventure, and it was like at the bottom, like at number 25, the least maybe, and one day you decided to swap them. You took security off of the top and you put it on the bottom of the list, and then you put adventures on the top. Would that change their personality? It literally changes the priorities of their entire life. It changes the way they look at everything, the way they evaluate everything, their physical actions, their behavior, their ultimate destiny. And that's literally what we do here. So now we have to find out exactly what a person's present values are. So we find out what is it that they want most in life. And they may not even be aware of that consciously, by the way. And then we also find out the things that are trying to avoid, because our whole lives are shaped by our hierarchy of values, what we want most, but also what we fear most. So most people, you ask them, what do you want in life? Well, I don't know what I want, but I don't want this. They answer you. Did you get these kind of answers all the time? So they are like what you want and what you like the most, and at the same time what we fear most. Then after we do that, we find out what are the triggers that cause someone to really be able to feel good or bad or alive. So what are the rules they have for these values? And then we have to design their life purpose, at least as right now, at the essence of that is really finding out what is most important to you. What is your life really going to be about? And then finally, we design their new values so that their values literally pull them in the direction of their goals, the direction of their life purpose. Because for most people, there are conflicts. And what do I mean? There are conflicts. On one side, they have success as their number one value in life. And on the other side, they have fear of rejection or fear of pain as the number one value they're trying to avoid. The question is, do you think those two go together? Yes, no? Up, down? Of course, you better believe you're going to have some problems. That person is never going to succeed because they're going to be so afraid of failure. They will start to succeed and then they will sabotage it. Why? Because simply they've got conflicts in their belief system and their values. Sometimes our values literally pull us apart. So I want you to understand the power of understanding your values and using them. So now I want you to grab a piece of paper. This is task number 1. And we have to find out what your values are. And how do we find out what our values are? Well, first thing you have to do is to ask a simple question. And you make it yourself, and it's a different question for different types of values. So now we will start. If you want to find out what are the moving towards values, the values you're trying to get to experience them of, like in your life, to the experience that make you pleasurable, that get you pleasure. So you simply ask yourself this question: what's most important to me in life? And please, I want you to try to answer this question honestly. What's most important to me in life? In other words, if I say what's most important to me in life, in my life, I might say maybe contribution, making a difference, growth, happiness, joy, physical health, being vibrant, being strong, being passionate. All of these elements are the state that really drive me as a human being. Now, what do is you write those down one at a time, and you say, what else is really important to me in my life? Can you answer this question as well? I want you to write them all down. Most people say, wow, what's most important to me in life is my family. Or what's important in my life is money. Or what's most important in my life is being successful. What's most important in my life is my well-being. But I want to tell you something you must be careful about. Successful is a value. It's a feeling. It's a state. But money and family are what we call means values. And what you want to find out, or what are your ends value? Let me clarify this. We don't want family just to have family. The reason you want to have family is because of the states you think you will get by having a great family. Maybe the states you're getting by having a family are love or security or closeness or spiritual connection. I don't know what is it for you personally, maybe contribution, but family is a means to an end. Are you following me? Cool. So What we want to find out are your and's value. What are the states that you want most? The state of mind that you want, not really what you want as money, as family, or as whatever. So what are the states that you want most? And a better question. Money is not an end, it's a means to an end. So the only reason people want money is what they think money will get them, which many times it doesn't, by the way. And by they think, okay, if I have money, then I would have more power. If I have money, I would have more choice, or I could contribute more, or I would be more free, or whatever the case may be. They only want money for its end. And means the end result or end product, or what will give you, what this thing will give you, what state money will give you, what state family will give you. So now if you write down something like family or relationship, you don't want a relationship, you want what you think a relationship will give you. So now I want you to write down what you will get out of a relationship. What are the feelings that you want? So if I want to find out my values about business, I would say, well, what's most important to me in my career or in my business? I can begin to write down what else is important in my business, or what's important in a job, or what's important to me in a company I work with. This is one of the questions Layal must ask herself. What's important for me in a company I work with? What's important in a job? I would say if I'm going to go to work for a company, what would be most important to me? Another thing Layal might ask herself as well. If I'm going to work for a company, what would be most important to me? And I begin to make a list. So you might say, well, the chance to express myself, the ability to contribute, the chance to make a difference, and you can find out your values in a relationship by saying, what's most important to me in a personal relationship? It might be love, it might be freedom, it might be power, passion. I don't know what is it for you guys. Just make a list. I will give you 30 seconds. Step 2. This is the first step to find out our towards 2 values. Step 2, what you're going to want to find out is what are the values or states you're trying to avoid. That is painful for you. You feel pain towards it and you don't want it. You just want to avoid it at any cost. Why? Because remember, your brain will do more to avoid pain than it will ever do to gain pleasure. So you better find out what those values are. Let's take a look at those. What are the feelings or states you would do almost anything to avoid? Come on, make a list. What are the feelings or states you would do almost anything to avoid? What are some of the emotional feelings, some of the emotions, some of the feelings in your body you would do almost anything to avoid? A different way of asking this question. What are some of the emotional feelings, some of the emotions, some of the feelings in the body that you would do almost anything to avoid it? Some people have a hard time with this one, but if you have a hard time, just I want you to ask yourself some of the feelings I've had before, like in the past, that I hate and I don't want to experience anymore. Humiliation, maybe. What are some times in my life I felt really down? And you will come up with that, maybe frustration, anger, humiliation, embarrassment, depression, overwhelmed. Maybe Rashad experiencing overwhelming now. Disappointment. I don't know what is it for you guys, but I want you to make a list of those as well. So I want you to find out your values. Why do you want to find out your values? Because you want to know what your brain is focused on a daily basis. Did you make a list? Cool. See, if you know your values, you know what your brain is paying attention to most. And if you change your values, guess what? You change your destiny, because you change what you focus and pay attention to daily, what you notice and what you behave and act on. Therefore, you literally have a whole new set of causes in motion, and you get a whole new set of effects. And it takes you in a new, definitely new direction, and ultimately to a new destiny. But rather than going and changing them, let's start just by finding out what they are, because you might find some conflicts. You may find you have something on your list, on your like top list, like success, that's maybe number one on your list, but health is not even on your list at all. And the question you would have to ask yourself, can you really be successful without health there? So, Roger, you asked me a question, and this is an answer. So these kind of questions, this is a kind of thing that will give you some clarity. Say, can you really be successful without health? You can ask a client during a session what kind of beliefs you're putting in someone's mind. So this is you give clarity. We call these questions like clarity questions. So the first thing you've got to do is find out what your values are. This way, you at least know what direction your brain and body are being pulled in life. The next question, and this is what I love, where did your values come from in the first place? Who knows? Are they the result of intelligent choices and a master plan? I hardly doubt, honestly. Because in most cases, the values of things that you pay attention to as being most important are the result of a mismatch of a human experience of you doing things and having painful experiences and pleasurable experience in your brain, just making a jumble of neural association. Make sense? So your values come from probably your parents. But how do your values get installed? It's pretty simple. Values come out of pain and pleasure, the driving force that we talked about before. That's how they happened. I will tell you. You were growing up, and when you did things that your parents really liked, and your mom, who's probably one of the major people, traditionally at least, who installed values in you. How? You did something she liked, and you immediately got rewarded. You got attention, you got held, you got loved. Isn't it true? Then if you did something your parents didn't like, that wasn't in alignment with what they thought was right or their values, then immediately what happened there was rejection. Either you were ignored, or you were scolded, or maybe even physically you were giving pain. And that's how the process started. And definitely it didn't end there. You then had the unique experience of going out in the real world, where you met other people who had different values and other kids that had different values, and then your values got shaped again. Because what happened is these little kids you met, you had to play by their rules too, or they had to play by yours, and you had to figure out how that worked. And by the way, if you didn't work with their own rules, if you didn't live by some of their values in life, there was pain. Why? You weren't their friend. They would maybe hurt you physically or verbally, or worse, they ignored you. This is the ultimate pain a child can have, someone ignoring you. Interesting, right? And we all want to avoid pain. So we sometimes kind of change our values just a little bit based upon who our friends were, and that continued while you grew up. So the question is, didn't you see who you were around on a consistent basis that shaped your values? So your teacher have affected you in many ways, like Ghafran, teacher in school. Do we have another teacher in school? So whether you wanted them or not, and whether they wanted to or not, what they rewarded you for and what they acknowledge you for, how they communicated with you, got you to link pleasure and pain too. I mean, that's the basis of all value structures that we have within ourselves. And the question is, didn't end here. You went to work. Definitely it didn't end, because you went to work and you learned a whole other set of value structure, because in order to succeed and move up the corporate ladder, there are certain ways you have to be. And you either decide you're not going to play the game, which create values, or you decide you're going to play the game and then you make some shifts in your values. Now, that doesn't mean they are bad shifts. Okay, be careful. It doesn't mean they are bad shifts. Maybe they are empowering shifts. Sometimes you develop better values. But the point is that they are affected you, because if you don't live by those values, you're probably not going to get promoted. The people who decide who they're going to promote based on their own values. So constantly your values are being shifted and affected by role models or by your heroes, and sometimes by anti-heroes. What do I mean by that? And you see it mostly in kids. A lot of kids today see their heroes, let's say as a musician, and they love the way this guy can play music. But also they can pick up a lot of other things this person does as well. Let's say if this person he take drugs, and maybe I think that's what I should do too, right? Isn't it the way kids think? So values are affected consistently by the goals you have achieved. You set a goal and all of a sudden you achieve it. And once you achieve it, that's not enough. In fact, it kind of affects your self-esteem, and you feel a little bit better, and you are now at this new level. So what do? You look for the next goal. And pretty soon, within a few years, the things that you're living now are different than where you were 4 or 5 years ago. That your brain says, hey, you know what? I could never do that. I mean, look where I am now. See, values are being affected all the time. The key is awareness to make sure you know, because they are the crux. Crux is basics. These are the basics, the fundamentals. Remember again, the brain is always trying to avoid pain and gain pleasure. So the only way to decide what to do is it goes inside your head and says, how does this relate to the experience this person has had? Will it relate to the kind of things this person thinks are pleasurable, or will it create the kind of pain this person wants to avoid? And how do we work all this stuff out? These are the twin targets in your brain that are driving you. So for now, the thing I want you to understand is they drive you, and I want you to understand what they are. What's the most important thing? And just looking at your values, sometimes you can make a change just by looking at them, just having awareness. What are they? You can see in your head, this is creating problems. And as soon as your brain links up, sometimes that's enough by itself. So when you link some kind of pain to anything that you want to change, you can change it immediately. Your subconscious mind will avoid it, even if you are not conscious about it. The moment you put something in your subconscious that is linked up with pain, your subconscious will avoid it to you, and you'll never do it. So once the brain will say that's creating pain and I don't want that anymore, and you'll be able to change them and design some new ones. Now, we are not going to go through this in detail, how to do that, because that's like a 3-day process by itself. But you can do it consciously just by making the decision. And I want you to know that as well. Let me tell you what I think is even more important and the real primary purpose of today. Once you know what your values are, that's great. Even if you don't change your values at all, there is something you must do to take control of your destiny in your life. And that is, you must understand the power of your beliefs to impact the quality of your life. Make sense? So now, your beliefs and values work together to determine how you're going to feel. What do I mean by that? Well, let me ask you a question. For example, is it possible to someone, let's say, have one of the things they value be success in life? A classic example of, say, a business person. A lot of business people say success, it's what's important to them. Okay? When you ask a business person, what is most important to you, who would just immediately say success. That's wonderful. The question I have for them, what has to happen for you to be successful? And what I'm finding out is this. The target is the values, but how do they know if they hit the target or not? Pay very good attention now, because what I'm saying, you would understand the difference between values and beliefs. So the question is, how do they know if they hit the target or not? That's based on your beliefs, and your beliefs are generalizations that you've made, rules you've set up for yourself about what has to happen for you to experience a certain result in your life. We all have rules. What do I mean by that? Rules are like, if I make enough money, then I'm successful. Or if enough people like me, then I am successful. Or if I am happy, then I'm successful. Or if I grow and learn, then I'm successful. People have these kind of rules within themselves. Or kind of, if you respect me, then you never raise your voice to me. Or if you like me, then you will kiss me maybe. So people have all kinds of interesting rules. But you know what's more interesting? All of us in the world have different rules, and we may even have the same values, but have different rules about what has to happen for those things to be achieved. This is the difference between people. Guys, life is a process. Do you agree? Life is a process. You have to learn to enjoy the flight and not just being there, or not just getting to some place or destination. For me, I will be happy to get when I get to this destination, and we forget about the whole process, and we will be working so hard to achieve something, and then once to get to this destination, I decide, well, okay, now I'm good to make myself, okay, I'm successful, I'm happy, I'm grateful, I'm confident, and so on. So we wait for this to happen. So what I want to tell you, life is a process. So learn to enjoy every single way, every single step of the way. It's not a destination that needs to be enjoyed on ongoing basis. And you know what the problem is? Most of us in life have values we did not design. Who designed it? Everyone. We talked about the life itself. So they are taking us in a direction that we have no clue about. Again, because we do what we think it's pleasurable, and we avoid do what we think it's painful. If we got security up there and we have no idea, or we got adventure and we don't have it back to back with intelligence, and so we're out there like a maniac doing crazy things, and we've got something like success, but on the other side we've got fear of rejection and failure as number one to avoid. So sure enough, we start to succeed and then we sabotage because we want to avoid feeling the pain of failure. So that's problem number one. Even worse, on top of all that, we have all these absurd beliefs about what we have to do to succeed. What do I mean by that? Sometimes we make things very difficult to us. I want you to experience something. Listen to me. Remember, every state that you want to feel, all those values that you want to get, you can have them right now. If you wanted to feel successful, you could do it right now, right this second. I want you to try it. You know what? I want you to try it. I want you to sit right now the way you'd be sitting if you felt successful. How would you sit? Just do it now, please. How would you sit if you felt successful? Sit the way you'd be sitting if you felt absolutely, totally happy and successful. Breathe right now the way you'd be breathing if you felt totally happy and successful. Put that kind of look on your face. Maybe the smile, maybe the smile like you'd be if you felt totally happy and successful. Show me the smile. How would you feel? Maybe move your shoulders back like you would like you would if you felt totally happy and successful. Think about what you'd say to yourself if you really felt totally happy and successful. What would you picture? What would you see? And you know what? If you work at this, you can feel successful right now. And you better believe you can. So I want you to remember, all the emotion that you could ever have are nothing but physiological storm in your brains. But your body, in the right place, focus on things the right way. You feel now, you don't have to do anything to feel those things. Just, there is a small problem. In life, most people have set up, so it's almost impossible to win the game of life. And they have set up the rules of this game. So it's so tough to win that they wonder why they are disappointed or frustrated or angry all the time. It's because they've got awful beliefs and they've got values somebody else created. Where did your beliefs come from? You didn't create them. You learned them from your environment and the people around you. What my whole life is about, my primary focus in our Destiny Technologies is getting people to design values and believe that automatically make it easy to feel alive and win every single day, no matter what happens, because we can't always control our environment. You can't always control the wind, but you can control your sails. So I've learned to do it, to set up values and beliefs that empower me. And every day I'm making more distinction with myself as well as people that I share them with in my seminars and webinars. So I want you to take a really good look. What are your core beliefs? Now I'll tell you there are two types of beliefs. And we'll wrap this up and you get to do it like an assignment for you. Belief number one, what I call a global beliefs. Global beliefs are giant generalization made about life or people or things. Like what? So what are some of the beliefs you have about who you are, and do they govern how much of your ability or skill you really use? How much of your personal power you tap into? What have you got to believe that says, well, I'm not very intelligent, or I'm not very skilled, or I don't have enough education, or I don't have enough ability. I want you to remember one thing. Whether you believe something is true or you don't believe it's true, like if you believe, whether you believe, let me rephrase this, whether you believe something is true or if you believe it's not true, you are right. Your beliefs are literally the floodgate that opens your power and possibility. So limiting beliefs shut you down and immediately chain to limitation. So if you want the key, all you have to do is adopt a new belief, and you can do it literally in a moment or two. Because you know what? You have conflicting belief, and you've already been taught things like, you know this one, look before you leap, look before you jump. And then you have another belief that says, who hesitates is lost, right? So which one would you pick? Most people think of beliefs as being like permanent things. They are not permanent. And in next month session, next masterclass, we're going to show you exactly how to change virtually any limiting belief. For now, though, you want to identify what they are. Let's see the challenges are. Let's see what are these challenges. Do you have any belief about other people? For example, people are honest, people are dishonest, people take advantage, people are givers. Does it make difference which of those beliefs you subscribe to? Will it make a difference how you relate to people, how you treat others, and how they treat you? Probably yes, because the way you perceive them before they even open their mouth, honestly. I will give you an example. What if you had a global belief that said, maids steal? You know, when you see a maid, you say maid steal, because you hear some people, oh, they stole some gold from the house and they left. So, and let's say you walk in a room and you notice there are some maids in there, and you sure enough, you forget about it for a while because you're caught up in what you're doing. Then later on, you leave, and after you've left, you notice that I forgot my purse or I forgot my wallet or whatever it is. And you run back to the room, and guess what? Sure enough, that wallet or purse is missing. What's the first question that fires off in your mind? Tell me which maid took it. First thing comes to your mind. So it's not where did I leave my purse or where did I leave my wallet. It's which maid took it. See, our beliefs determine which questions we are even willing to ask. What we focus on is what we feel. So I'm here today to tell you that the beliefs you have determine which questions you're willing to ask, even to ask to yourself, and which habitual questions you have. See, if you think that you're inferior, you'll probably ask a question like, why do I always do this? How come I'm not enough? If you keep going, how come I'm not enough? Your brain will go in there and search for a reason to show you why you are not enough. So we have to change our core beliefs. We have to get beliefs that support us. So global beliefs are life as people are. Number two, which is second kind of beliefs, we've already talked about, I call them rules. Rules are like, if you love me, then you would do this. If you appreciate me, then you would do that. If you respected me, then you would do that. And you know what? People have different rules. Any misunderstanding you've ever had with another person comes down to rules. You have rules about how they should behave or act or treat or speak or do something, and they are not living by the rules you have. Isn't it true? In a relationship, mostly, if you love me, you would do this. You should act this way. You should do this way. So the question is, how can you expect somebody live by your rules when you haven't communicated what they are? And besides that, are your rules really right? So you would say, of course they are. But I will ask you another question. where do they come from? Maybe it's time now to reevaluate your rules and see if they make sense. Maybe you should make it easier to win the game of life and create rules for success. For example, things that you could experience daily, that what you would feel successful every day instead of impossible desires. Take another look. That's what I'm asking you to do today. What should you do? What we should do over a period of 3 days to a week, but you don't have to understand it all. Just remember, distinctions or power, just one more understanding, one way of looking at something, and one more distinctions can change your whole life, guys. A small understanding can change the whole destiny. So I want you to know, as you're going through this day, that if you think you have to understand all of this stuff, you're going to feel overwhelmed today. For me, I finally decided, in order to achieve my life goals, I had to put health at a higher level of value. And one of my rules is I exercise every single day. Makes sense for me. Now, that was impossible for most people, but for me, it makes more sense. So I want you to make sure you set yourself up to succeed, because some people evaluate, God, is this program working for me? Has my whole life changed already? That may not be the best question to ask, and that might not be the best evaluation. Maybe if you have made any new understanding that you're able to use at all, if each day you just make one more distinction, then you have learned one more thing, and you get a chance to use one more thing. And for me, if I learn one thing, I have succeeded. See, for me, success and my beliefs about success are, if I learn something from the situation, I succeeded. That's simple. I used to be afraid of failure because, God, that was an ultimate pain for me. So I now see it as impossible for me to fail. Why? Because in order for me to fail, I would have to learn nothing. And if at any moment I realize I haven't learned something from it, then I just learned that I didn't learn. And I will turn it around. I say, okay, what can I learn now? So as soon as I ask myself, what can I learn? I will come up with an answer. So set yourself up so that you can win this game of life and be good to yourself. So now I want you, I remind them of the questions, or did you write the questions down? What's most important to me in life? Did you do these questions? States, passion, love, happiness, security. So you have to understand that your brain makes decisions. I will tell Ghufran to send it to you later, maybe if you didn't have the chance to do it. And if your brain, I was telling you something. So if your brain makes decision all the time, like on a consistent basis. So you have to understand this first. And if on your list is something like number 1 is success, and you go down to a list and number 5 is, let's say, love, okay? Then it's obvious that if somebody asks you to come to the office at 10 o'clock at night and your family wants you to be there as well, it's pretty clear, it is pretty clear that you're more than likely going to decide most of the time you're going to the office because that's success for you, because you already feel like love is not quite as important. So if love is number 1 and success is number 5, they have good chance you're going to say, look, I need to stay here with my family. Unless your family says, hey, we support you, we love you, just go for it, do it. And we know that you need to do that. So this is how the decisions are made out of our beliefs and values. So you have to understand your life priorities because these priorities you've set for yourself are directing your whole life. So what is most important to you in life? This is the question. What's most important to you in the relationships? Then go for the moving away from values and think about what are the emotions I would like to almost do anything to avoid. So put these in order and ask yourself with each one, which one would I do the most to avoid? What's the one I do the next most to avoid? So you can see what pain your brain is always evaluating. And if I do that, will it mean that? Well, then I won't do it. So you need to know what the targets are driving our life. That is the carrot in front of you. And what are the stakes behind you, pain and pleasure, that are driving your behavior. So last question, I want you to ask yourself, what has to happen for me to feel whatever it is? So again, if the number one is value is, or number one value is success, what do I have to have happen in order for me to feel successful? If it's love, what has to happen for me to be willing to feel loved? What has to happen for me to feel like I really have that level of love in my life? And find out what your rules are. You might find, for example, in order for you to feel love, people have to tell you that they love you every single day and they have to touch you. Maybe at that time you say, look, I'm loved. How do I know I'm loved? Because I'm alive? Or how do I know I'm loved? Because I'm a loving person. So therefore I'm loved. Wouldn't that be a better belief? So find out your towards value, find out your away from values, put them in their order of importance, find out your key beliefs, and then mess with them. Go in there and take a look of some rules and say, this doesn't make any sense anymore, and I don't know where I got this from. Here is how I really want to evaluate whether I'm successful, whether I'm loving, whether or not I feel joy. I want to make it harder to feel pain. So there is a lot to do there. Do as much as you want, but at least do the minimum things I've talked about. Remember, simple awareness alone can change your life massively.